My good friend and storytelling teacher, Maureen, asked me to come here today to talk with you about my tango. That was tango. My tango
The sharing of stories can
transformation.
spark laughs, tears, and fresh perspectives.
Every teacher in our school has a web, and the web tells the personality of the teacher.
This is Democratic Visions. Here's producer Jeff Strait.
In early November, the Hennepin History Museum, with the help of storytelling coach Maren Hinderly, gathered 11 people who could be your neighbors.
As I backed up, she almost hit herself in her own nose.
Neighbors with stories pegged to an object of personal resonance to their lives.
Who's looking at me?
The packed room heard from a variety of Minnesotans.
This is my masterpiece.
Welcome. Over the next several months, Democratic Visions will be featuring some storytellers, your neighbors, a variety of people. And joining us for the first time is Maren Hinderly, that coach I mentioned. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now tell me about the event.
Keys to homes in our hearts. Well, it was a surprise.
Okay.
It was a surprise because, first of all, there was great doubt that I would be able to find enough people from a variety of races and faith traditions and cultural backgrounds to fill an event like this. For at least an hour it had to take place, you know. And lo and behold, I found 11.
Now, you made them bring an object that was important to each and every one of their lives. And so what was the philosophy behind this?
Well, there are two reasons for this. The number one was we were in a museum. And museums traditionally have collections, and the collections are of things that have importance and significance to the community. They help us understand who we are and where we came from and what has happened that's important to us. Now, in our own lives, we are Americans and we tend to have a lot of stuff. Some of it is also very valuable to us, and it might not be something anyone else wants. That was what we wanted for the stories.
Well, hey, let's take a look at the first 5 storytellers.
All right.
Hello. My good friend and storytelling teacher, Maureen, asked me to come here today to talk with you about my tango transformation. My name is Marisa. I was born and raised in Buenos Aires, Argentina. My family was a very traditional family. We live in a very traditional suburb. There was no space for tango there. I was interested in the tango history, in the tango culture, the music, the dance, but there was no place for me to learn about it there. Tango was something that the others did, not us. Well, time passed by. I came to Minnesota, and now and then at the party, if some tango music was playing, I was invited to dance. And I had to say, no, I'm sorry, I don't know how to dance. You know, I think all over the world people think that we Argentinians, we all dance tango, but that's not true. When I was in my mid-60s, I broke a leg. I was on crutches for 6 months. Oh, it was boring. It was awful. And then when I stood up on my legs, back on my legs, I felt that was my opportunity. If I wasn't going to learn tango at that time, when I could still walk, what I was going to be waiting for? Break the other leg, break the same leg again. And I went in pursuit of some tango teachers. I found a wonderful teacher. She had learned tango here in Minnesota, but also worked in Buenos Aires with some of the old masters. She loved the dance, the culture, and she held my hand through all the learning process. I think I was a challenge for her because in my mid-60s, I believe I was the oldest beginner student that woman ever had. She was very helpful. And with her, the transformation began. It wasn't easy. It was too hard for my old brain to transmit some sort of mobility to the rest of my body. It was too hard for my old bones to move to the beat of the dance. It was too hard for my old knees to stand in one foot or the other and keep the balance. And it was so hard for my old concept of mind to embrace strangers, and some of them so young that they could have been my grandsons. But I did it all. I stopped chewing out my nails. I stood up more straight. I took some more care of my health. I lost some weight. And I began to smile more often. When I was a good dancer, capable of accepting invitation for a casual party, I felt that that was not enough. You know, when you fall in love with tango, you fall in love forever. And you want more and more and more of it. All my thoughts were about tango. All my energy was channeled about tango. All my time was dedicated to tango. All my money went to pay for tango classes, tango music, tango books, and tango shoes. Now, I can say I'm very proud to say that I have wear out several pairs of tango shoes. And the best thing about this transformation is that, well, you know, life can be unfair. And sometimes I feel, to all of us can happen. I feel sad or lonely. However, when I come back after a tango dance, after dancing all night, and I feel pain on my feet, it's so good to feel that the pain on my feet is bigger than the pain on my heart. I think that the transformation was wonderful.
Well, thanks so much for coming to Hennepin History Museum here. It took me about an hour to find a parking lot. All those people going to the Minneapolis Institute of Art, try to watch Dead Egyptian. This is probably, you're lucky you're going to see a live Egyptian for the first time. First time you see a live Egyptian in a museum, so consider yourself lucky. Keeping with the shoe theme, this is also about shoes and barefoot, and I need some help from the audience. I'd like that first row to take their shoes off and help me out to inspire that story. Thank you. Well, this story took place in a small village in Egypt. I was 10 years old, and the village was very small, and just before CNN, Al Jazeera, and Facebook, life was very simple. People wake up sunrise and go to field and come back sunsets. You don't need Google Watch or GPS or anything. Things was rhythm and nice. And the village only, one street, one store, one barber shop, one mosque, and one elementary school. My family was the one who running the schools. All the teachers, my uncles, and my dad was the school principal. And we were very much living separated from the rest of the village. village kids dress differently, they speak differently, and play different games. And that bothered me a lot, and I want to join in, and I always want to wear like them, and I want to play with them. But being the son of the principal really stood in the way. So at the school, I walk every morning. It's about a mile from my house to that school. You go across the village, and everybody's watching, and everybody making sure every move you make as the principal's son, it's been taken. So I couldn't be naughty. I couldn't kind of go and steal cucumber from the field like the rest of the kids. And one day, the school hired a teacher from the city nearby. And that teacher was like a law and order kind of a guy, kind of a Republican kind of a deal. And every morning, he lined up all the students in the schoolyard. And, most of the students were poor kids. They come to school barefoot. I'm not saying 20% probably coming to the school barefoot. And he looked at it as those are troublemakers. And they have to have dress and wear their shoes. So every morning, he calls on all the students barefoot to come in the front, line up in one file, and he picks them up one by one. And every teacher in our school has a whip, and the whip tells the personality of the teacher. So everybody kind of very creative in how pick up the whip, a branch of a tree, or a roller, or a piece of wood, and a ladder, and all of that. But this city teacher has imagination of how this whip. It has to be like a whip from a certain tree there by the school, and he goes through this every morning, beating the students up, and not just the physical pain, but the humiliation those students have every morning. That bothered me a lot. So I keep telling my dad about this city teachers. My dad was a busy man, has a business running the school, and they really have time to deal with this, have more important things to run. So every day I thinking, how can I deal with this? The city teacher was treating me very special. I'm the one who's smart. I'm the one who, Ahmad, you're the best student in the class, that kind of stuff. And all this kind of widened the gap between me and the rest of the students. So one day I thought to myself, how could I deal with this guy? Nobody can stop him. He's doing this every day. My dad is busy and all of this. So spend all night thinking, what can I do? What can I deal? And how can I use my privilege to deal with this? I thought to myself, what if I went to school barefoot? Here comes the idea of shoes. What if I go to the school barefoot, and when he calls for the barefoot students, I just go online, sneak into the line and stand and see how he is going to react. He's going to be a moral dilemma presented to that city teacher. How he's going to deal with the principal's son standing in the line the same as the barefoot feet kids. The problem was, how do I sneak out of the house, go through the village barefoot? So that's another problem. Thought about it for a little bit, and I thought, I'll just, in the morning, I leave the house as I usually do, dress, short shirt and shoes, walk through the village, go to school, and before I go to school, I just take my shoes off and hide it in some of the bushes there. So I did. Line up in the morning line up, city teacher came, stood, calling on all the students that barefoot come in the front, and he started the beating from right to left, It's very important. Right to left. In Arabic, right to left. So the beating, right to left. We're very organized when it comes to, to violence. So as the beating coming closer and approaching me, and the cries, and it's getting louder and louder, I'm terrified. Nobody paid attention to, everybody's preoccupied with what's going on, so people didn't bother me standing in that line. And so as the teacher coming closer, and when I get terrified, my face freezes. You cannot tell how terrified inside. It just freezes. So the teacher came, and all of a sudden he's looking, and he found the principal's son in the front of him. He looked down my feet, and he found me like this, barefoot, and like this, kids. Thank you so much for the visual aid here. And now everybody kind of looking at the teacher and see how they're going to react. By this time, they know I'm with the barefoot students. So the teachers, his reaction was very quick, didn't make this last for a long time. Start dismissing everybody, curse. Tomorrow I'm going to do this double and all this, and tomorrow is another day. And he dismissed the rest of the line. Now, I am Spartacus. I am the hero who stood to this injustice. And that day, the students, for the first time, the villager students, who refused to let me play with them, or refused to me, always call me the principal's son and all of that, for the first time, they call me with my first name. I'm no longer the principal's son. Now I'm one of them, and the trust came back, and we became a student like everybody else. Thank you very much for listening.
This is my masterpiece. This chicken mold, there's a bottom to it. I left it on the window. It's sitting there waiting for me. This is a chicken mold, and this continues to remind me of my inner child. Put it right here. I am Ojibwe. I am Anishinaabe. I am Native American. My name is Connie Goggle-Eye Edberg. Goggle-Eye is an Indian name, which means that I'm part of the Fish Clan. My family, big family, we live in, my family lives on the Leech Lake Indian Reservation. And I want to share with you that there were two eras. There was the boarding school era, and there was the foster care era. In the boarding school era, Native children were taken out of their homes and placed in boarding schools. In the foster care era, which was the 20th century, children were taken from their homes and placed in white foster homes. I was one of those children. I was a foster care child. It was 1952. I was 6 years old. I went to live on a farm in northern Minnesota. I say rural, but it was a small town. It was just outside of a small town, and I always say small town USA. So the farm, I'll lay it out for you. I would imagine the barn was that direction, big red barn that direction on the left-hand side. The farmhouse was in the middle, big farmhouse. The garden was over to the right. And on the right side, the north side of the garden was a row of hollyhocks. They were tall. Remember now, I'm 6 years old, so I was like, well, who's 6 here? Is there anybody that's 6 here? Those hollyhocks were tall, and there was a row of them, and they were all in beautiful colors. And then along the fence, next to the road, there were sort of a scattering of hollyhocks. And the pathway that led out to a field was where I wanted to see what it was all about. So I was there probably maybe about a week. I decided I was going to go out to that field. As I walked along, I saw a sandbox. So remember, I'm 6 years old. Big sandbox. On the corner was a seat, and on this corner was a seat. And so, being 6 years old, I went and sat down on the sidewalk, sandbox, sat down, looked around. I let the sand sift through my fingers. Nice sand. One sifted this way, that way, just let it fall through my hands. There's something sort of mesmerizing about having sand sift through your hands. And as I sat there and let the sand sift through my hands, I looked around and I saw cups, I saw tin cans, and I saw spoons. You know what the spoons were used for? What do you think the spoons were used for? Got an idea?
Pick up sand?
To pick up sand. They were the shovels. They were the shovels. They didn't have, like sand pail and sand shovels. They were the shovels. So I looked at them and thought, well, I can use those. I'll use that pail. And then I looked over here, and there was a chicken mold. So I picked it up and I decided I needed to do something with that. What am I going to do with it? I decided that I would get some water in one of the pails, got the water, put the sand in, mixed it up with my shovel spoon, mixed it up, and I found a board. It was probably like this. Maybe it was about, like this. Took the board, set it down, picked up my chicken, took some sand out of this pail, this wet sand that I put in there, put one handful in, packed it down, took another handful, packed it down, smoothed it out, set it on the board, lifted it up. Yeah, looks good. Decided I could make another one. Took the sand, put it in there, the wet sand. Took another handful, smoothed it out, put it down, looked at it. I think I'll make one more. So I took sand from the pail, or the can, took the sand, put it in there, one handful, took another handful, and maybe I took another handful of wet sand, smoothed it out so that it was flat on the chicken mold, and I set it down. I looked at it. As I sat there, I looked, and here I'd made 3 chickens. And that, it was my masterpiece. I was 6 years old, and I said, aha, my masterpiece. And you know what? This chicken mold continues to remind me of my inner child.
Good afternoon. My name is Felicia, and I was born and raised in South Minneapolis, but spent my summers in the South with my grandparents. I am a child that likes to dress up. I remember being 6 or 7 and going into my parents' bedroom into the closet, and that closet was filled with shoes. My mom's shoes, not my dad's shoes. My mom's shoes, and I remember sitting on the floor and looking at all the shoes, and there was one pair that always caught my eye. is a pair of high-heeled yellow candies. I'm dating myself. I would put those shoes on and I would clomp around the house on our wooden floors. Anybody else ever do that? Yeah. And my mom was okay with that. I'm sure it drove her nuts, right, hearing that noise. I would do the same thing at my grandparents' house. But my grandma had a closet that was filled with my mom's old party dresses when she was in high school. And when she introduced me to that closet, every summer when I would go stay with them, that's right where I would head. I would head into that closet, take out all the dresses, go lay them in the bed, and then just figure out which one I was going to try on. I was always drawn to the light blue tulle dress with the ribbon around the waist. And I was little, I was probably 10. So I'd put it on and I'd have to hold it, the tulle scratching under my arms, and I would twirl around in it like that, right? And then I'd go to her closet and get her shoes and put on those heels and wait for the day that I could actually wear all this stuff and it would fit properly. Unfortunately, that day never came. I just imagined myself wearing the dress and the shoes. Oh, and the jewelry. I forgot the jewelry. Grandma had a dresser in her bedroom with lots of drawers. It had a glass top, and underneath it had the 4-leaf clovers that she could always find in the yard that I never could, that she would press under there. But she'd let me play in her jewelry. Oh, there was also lots of perfume bottles on that glass top. So I'd open the drawers, and I'd touch the pearls and the chains, put on the earrings and the bracelets. As every Southern woman knows, more is better, right? And I would put all that on and again dream for the day that I could wear all of those things. Unfortunately, I'm bigger than my mother, and I never got the chance to actually wear that dress to a party. When I was probably about 15, I remember spending that summer at my grandparents' again, and my grandmother let me go back into her bedroom again and go through all of the drawers and the boxes. And as a child of the 80s, some of you will know what I'm talking about, everything was big, right? Big hair, big shirts over leggings, stirrup pants. Anybody remember those? Yes. Any girl worth her salt in 1985 had a brooch that she wore right here, closing her collar, right? So anybody remember Claire's? Or the icing, right? A lot of blingy things in there. But this was the best. My grandma said I could pick any brooch that I wanted to bring home that summer. And I took my time. And this one caught my eye. And when I got back that fall and put on that white button down over black leggings, this is the brooch that I used to close my blouse. And I have to say, knowing that this came from her was better than anything I could have ever gotten at Claire's or the icing. And this reminds me of my grandmother's love when I wear it now. And yeah, I have to say, gives me a little bit more swagger when I wear it. Thanks.
Now, this storytelling engagement that you produced, okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want more of these to happen?
Absolutely. You know, one story leads to another, and that's what I think. I think once neighborhoods start to hear stories from other neighbors, they're going to go, oh, that reminds me of a time when I...
Yeah. Hey, thanks for bringing these stories to us.
Oh, man, I'm happy to.
Maren Hinderly can be reached at marenhinderly.com. The Hennepin History Museum lives at hennepinhistory.org. Democratic Visions is handcrafted by volunteers through Southwest Community Television and Bloomington Community Access Television. Democratic Visions can be seen on select cable access systems and on our YouTube channel. This is Carol Sundstrom.